Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Give me a D. Give me a I. Give me a C. Give me a.
The number 17. The number 17 in this video is very important. And the reason why the number 17 is the age that the average man loses his virginity. Now, obviously, that isn't across the board for everyone. I know there's going to be some people, I lost my virginity at 12, 13, 14. No, whether it's true or not. But this is the average age. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is think about a young man, 17, sentenced as an adult for a 20, 30, or maybe even 5 or 10 year bid. And they never experienced a woman. Never experienced having sex with a woman. Think about it. So when it comes to the subject of things that happen in prison, one of the main topics is homosexuality in prison. Goes back to the average age of 17 being the age that most men lose their virginity. So if you're 17 going into prison, never experienced a woman, what do you think most likely, what would you end up doing? Just think about that for a minute. Have you figured it out yet? That's right. Most likely what a person in this predicament at that age would end up eventually doing is most likely experimenting or getting involved in homosexual activity. What's up, people, and welcome back to the channel. Before I go any further, make sure you hit that like and sub button. Let's talk about it. Now, as a kid, a common thing that we did as young men is something that you would call lying on your dick. And lying on your dick would be claiming that you not only had sex with a person, particularly a female, it can also mean you just lying about not being a virgin. And that's what many, if not most of us did. Now, you always had here and there some dudes that started at an early age for whatever reason. But for the most part, we were lying. So, you have a young man that's 17 going into prison, categorized as an adult. Or even picture a young man that was in a juvenile facility at a young age, grew into a man, had to be transferred over to an adult prison, and hasn't experienced a woman. See, at this very young age, our testosterone, because we're still going through puberty, our testosterone levels are extremely high. And high testosterone levels are the things that give men high libidos, aka sex drive. So just because you go to prison doesn't mean that all goes away. And you're still getting older. Your testosterone levels in many of the men at that young age is still increasing, which means you're most likely getting hornier and hornier because your libido is going higher and higher. So you're having the same effects that you did as a kid and as a young man. Morning wood, and it wouldn't take much for you to get aroused. So you're walking around with a hard on, and I know this sounds disgusting, but it's the honest truth. You're walking around with a hard on probably all day and have no way of utilizing it. Yeah, well, there is one way, that's with your hand. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's natural and it's okay. But don't you think that it will eventually get too old for a person that has never experienced it? Or a person that just barely experienced it? Maybe got it 1 or 2 times before he went to prison. Let's think about those two. One who hasn't experienced it at all and one who barely experienced it. Because your body is still functioning the same way. So like I said, your hand, which would be considered masturbation, your hand is going to get old. And most likely you're going to want something that's a little more firm. Now, obviously, to me and many of us, nothing is better than a woman when it comes to that. But if you haven't experienced anything at all, you may be tempted to indulge. And you may fight it in the beginning. Then you'll end up convincing yourself that it's okay. Let's say, for instance, as long as I'm not the one taking it, I'm giving it. AKA, I'm not the catcher, I'm the pitcher. You'll convince yourself that justifies that thought, that justifies that homosexual act. And let me say this, there's nothing wrong with being homosexual, but you must own that fact. I'm not saying you need to go to the top of the mountains and just scream it to the universe. No, I'm not saying that. Just own the fact that that's what it is. So nowadays, well, in my career, the inmates that most likely turn out to be sexual predators, that sexually will SA other inmates in prison, are the inmates who came in at an extremely young age. Normally what also happens with those inmates that come in at an extremely young age, they're easily manipulated by the older inmates that came in at a very young age and have 20, 30 years in. Those will be the ones that will manipulate and be able to convince these young men that these homosexual acts and activities is normal and it's okay. Because also at that young age, your brain isn't fully developed. So it's easy to manipulate you if you haven't been exposed to certain things. Your brain doesn't finish developing until the age of 25, I believe. But honestly, about 90 to 95% from my career, 90 to 95% of the labeled sexual predators in prison, when I read their files, their sentences started at the age of between 17, 19, or 20, which fits the narrative that I'm giving you. So it's like a cycle. Those young men come at an early age, develop into the sexual predators in the prison, SA other inmates, and when the extremely young ones come in, just like when they were young, it's like it's fresh meat. It's fresh meat. They can't wait to get at it. And to be completely honest with you, it doesn't take much. They are able to easily convince these young men that this is the route to go. So you'll see these young men come in, present themselves one way, like a normal man their age, young man their age. About 4 or 5 months in, you will start seeing feminine mannerisms, tighter clothes, lip gloss, creating lipstick out of Kool-Aid packets. So in essence, what happens is they are turned into the woman that mentally they're being deprived of. And even though there are sexual predators in prison, it's not as prevalent as you may think, or what the movies or TV shows make it out to be, even though they do exist. Now, nowadays you'll rarely have an inmate SA'd because of the PREA Act. And major repercussions can come behind an inmate sexually assaulting another inmate. So it's not viewed lightly. And I never thought it was funny, but it's not viewed lightly and taken very serious nowadays. So there tends to be a little bit more hesitation when it comes to that. But you'll have men in prison that have, I guess, evolved into something that looks close to a woman. Those inmates will be able to easily convince those young inmates just coming in at a very young age that it's okay to get sexually involved with them. Right now in 2025, prisons, especially federal prisons, have many quote-unquote transgender inmates. Now, when it comes to the transgender inmates, a lot of inmates take advantage of it because there's perks that come along with being transgender. So they'll, when it's unofficial, they'll admit that they're not gay and they're not real transgenders, which is hard to believe in my opinion, because there's nothing that, if I'm not actually that, something like that, there's nothing that you can convince me that will make it make sense to lie about being someone like that. But since you do have these transgender inmates sprinkled across every single prison, those young inmates definitely try to indulge in sexual activities with the transgender inmates. Because they truly, you will have inmates that have all the body parts of a woman, look identical to a woman, soft features and all, but just still have that main male piece of equipment. So when it comes to them, these young inmates are able to really convince themselves and talk themselves into actually going and pursue them like they're actual real women out there on the street. Now, one way it's easy to tell that an inmate hasn't had experience with women is how they carry themselves and how they talk to female staff. You can tell. And it's a lot of them walking around there. So, if you don't want to be a part of that statistic, young man going to prison without experiencing any sex with a woman, if you don't want to turn into that, then you might want to keep your nose clean and stay out of prison. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Does it make sense that an inmate locked up at an early age would most likely participate in homosexual activity? Let me know whether you agree or disagree in the comment section. Thanks for watching the video. Till next time, I'm out.
Practicing. Okay, hit me. Come on, let's go. 1, 2, 3. Give me a D. D. Give me a I. I. Give me a C. C. Give me a. Act like you ain't want to see more, Brucey. Kiss you again, cause your breath smell like 8 cans of shark shit.